Hello everyone, welcome to Live with Science Didi for another Saturday of getting new information about the work that is happening in the field of science. Today we have Jolene Briganza with us. My partner Linsha will introduce her a little bit more. And the session that we are going to have today is called Unleash the Little Scientist with Jolene Briganza. Linsha, why don't you introduce Jolene first?
Hello everyone. So welcome Jolene. So
Hi.
Jolene is a hi. Jolene is a certified personal child counselor and a blogger. Professionally, she is working with differently able children, where she's an educator. Her way of teaching is very holistic and enriching. So also she has a YouTube channel in the name of Toddler Doodles, where she aims of educating young parents and teachers with different strategies of parenting in all angles. So, Jolene, why don't you tell more about this and your work?
Hi. Thank you so much for, first of all, having me on this platform. I've been in the field of special needs for around 10 years and more, you can say. I've been in Mumbai for almost 5 to 6 years, teaching in an IB curriculum school. And then I moved to the UAE and I've been teaching here with, again, in the field of special needs. I also do counseling for children and parents from KG all the way till grade 12. And that's been my job role since the past 10 years. And I love my job.
That's great.
So, Jolene, it's great that you are doing this work. You know, this is some really important work, and we are very interested in what you're doing. So, on the right in the beginning, the question that I have for you is, toddlers. You don't really think that toddlers are going to be able to understand science, or this is the popular opinion that people have that बच्चा क्या ही समझेगा, he's just a baby, he's just a kid, don't irritate them. Like as the nerd of the family, I often get that comment if I try to teach science to my
Absolutely.
nephews and nieces. So how early can we start teaching science to toddlers, or when do they start understanding concepts and various topics of maths and science?
Jogita, that's an absolute correct point that you've pointed out where, especially with Indian parents, they feel that, okay, the child is too small now. Please don't teach them. Don't hammer them with your knowledge and don't start teaching them. Why are you teaching them? Stuff like that. The research says that children at a very young age, their brains are like sponges. The more you give in to them, the more information you give in, they will pick up. And the best age is when they are a toddler. So according to me, there's no real right or wrong age. There's no correct age when children can pick up. Every child picks up at their own pace. Every child is different. Some might pick up alphabets at a different age. Some might pick up concepts at a different stage. It all depends on the conducive and nurturing environment the parent gives. So if the child is deprived of this kind of an environment, it depends. Like, some parents are working because they don't have an option. Some parents have the opportunity of being at home, being a stay-at-home mom. And so they have to make their time at home worthwhile by spending that time and giving in that nurturing environment for the child. And that's how the child will pick up.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense to us. Yeah, Linsha, you have a question?
Yeah. Now, next question is, like, how do we introduce complicated stuffs in like complicated concepts with children or toddlers? Like, is there any way to do that?
By complicated things, as in what specific topic are you talking about? There are different
Suppose,
complicated topics in
So,
science.
I'll just give you an example. Like, a child is a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old is looking at a rainbow, and they ask
Okay.
me, what is this? And I
Okay.
tell them this is a rainbow. Then they ask me, where does it come from? So, I do not want to give them an answer where, oh, it came from the heaven, or, I want to give the
yeah,
scientific
like that.
answer.
Yeah,
Practical
So I
answer. Yeah.
don't inculcate superstition into their mind. I would rather give
yeah.
them a scientific answer. So,
How
what
to
would you
Absolutely.
do
introduce?
in that
Yeah,
situation?
Yeah. See, so something like for example, something like patterns. Now, something like patterns is a very varied, a very huge concept. But when it comes to teaching toddlers, I'll stick to teaching toddlers, for example, because that's the main how we are going to introduce a topic like patterns to toddlers. When children are when they are babies, for example, learning for them has mainly two factors. Okay, so the main thing is to detect and remember patterns. Now, when babies are small, so parents we usually tell our parents to start talking to babies from when they are very small. There's no thing of, oh, the baby is only 2 months, 3 months old, don't talk to them. Or sing lullabies, or, don't speak because they can't understand anything. There's absolutely nothing like that. When the child is 1 month, 2 months, sometimes even in the womb, there is research proven that even in the womb, the child can understand, they build up connections when the child is in the womb. So keep talking to your baby. So when the mother or dad says that, okay, when you're sleeping, okay, come on, it's sleeping time. Or when you're taking the child for bath, say it's bathing time. As you repeat these sentences to your child, you don't have to use a word. You have to repeat the full sentence. It is bathing time. It is sleeping time. It is eating time now. The child develops connections with these patterns in their mind, and that's how they use them to connect and build their own speech later on. So the more you talk, the more faster your child will start talking, because they will begin to start talking. And apart from that, patterns you can show them in their clothes. They have different designs on their clothes. They have action songs. Like when there's a very famous birdie song that na 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 na. Everyone knows about it. So that's a very very famous action song which kids love, and that again will bring about memory. It's like a memory challenge where you have to remember the steps in order and things like that. So again, day and night, the concept of day and night, to talk to a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, it's very very easy. It's not like, oh, you don't have to you don't have to bring about complete science into it. Just tell them, in the day you see the sun, in the night you see the moon, in the day it's very hot, and there's people are out, they're going for work. Get them to connect different things today, get them to connect different things tonight, and that's how they'll make. And after day comes night, you go to sleep in the night, then you get up in the morning. So I will build patterns in their head automatically. You don't. For us, it's like, oh, I'm teaching my child patterns, but the environment itself shows the child patterns in its daily life. The child automatically picks up.
So it ties back into the nurturing environment concept.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That we are talking about. We have to be very present as parents when we are with our children. We cannot be half here and half there, and that's one of the key things I'm picking out of this. Linsha, you have another question for Jolene?
So, like, getting to the patterns part. So, like, when they learn about alphabets, so some toddlers, they like misinterpret, like A and H, they look similar. So, how do we differentiate in that case? Like, talking about patterns.
That's a very different, see, when they are toddlers, when you're introducing toddlers, first of all, the parent has to be sure of how she's teaching the child herself. Mainly, as toddlers, it takes time for letters. There are some parents who are so finicky and so paranoid. Oh my God, my child has to learn letters or get used to numbers and stuff before they enter KG. It's not important. It's not my personal thing. For a child to be ready to get into KG is how to sit, your sitting tolerance, how to react to orders from the teacher or requests from the teacher. These things are way more important than knowing letters and knowing numbers and this and that. So letters, because see, formations of letters, numbers, they all, in my field of practice, children till grade 1, grade 2 have a slight confusion. By that time, they get confident with their letters. So as parents, as teachers, we are not supposed to get, oh my God, the child is writing a letter. He's writing the other side, oh my God, something is wrong with him, he has a disability. No, it's nothing like that. It's a child. So just give them their time, they'll figure it out.
A lot of times that is the problem that we come across. Everybody panics or get anxious about the child. Especially if it is the first child, they are all over that baby and trying all kinds of experiments.
Absolutely.
So it's good to experiment, but what I'm picking is we should not panic, especially when it comes to progress. That's
absolutely, because every child is different. Every child will progress at their own pace.
Yeah. So, is it true that toddlers are curious in nature?
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
very curious in nature. Babies are curious in nature.
Yeah.
Human beings in general are very, very curious. We are born curious. Babies are even more curious. It's just that as adults, we are more, not only as adults, even when a child moves into KG or their nursery, they start saying, oh my gosh, what will someone say about me? My friends will make fun of me, or my teacher won't have time to answer my question. And that's when their curiosity decreases, which is a very wrong thing. But sometimes teachers don't mean it. I mean, I've been in a teacher's place, so I understand you might not be able to cater to all 20-25 students. You might not be able to pay attention to that one question, which might be a very valid question at that point. So as parents at this age, when your child is at home, you have to make time for, like, there's no compromise. I personally feel that you should not compromise on that, because that's how a child will learn. Their curiosity is going to build up. And if you keep like, okay, I'm busy now, please come after 2 minutes, that moment of learning will pass away. And once that moment of learning passes away, you won't get that moment back. So try and be there available. Show your child that, okay, communicating is an extremely enriching process. If you tell me something, I'm going to give you 10 things more to learn. So you have to come. If you find something new in the environment, come and tell me about it. I will tell you. Maybe I'll show you a video which is, it will give you more meaning, or maybe we'll do an activity. So make it exciting. So get your child to come and tell you, Mama, I got something new today. Papa, I got something new today. So, they should be excited to come and tell you something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's uh, as parents, as toddlers, the attention matters a lot. If their answers are not fulfilled in the manner that they were looking for, it not only affects their learning, it also affects their emotional intelligence. That
Absolutely.
that's when, as parents, if we start ignoring them, that's when they start thinking that we are not loved. Or and of course it's difficult. I know that it's very difficult. We don't have enough time, but I think what we could do, this is an advice that I would give, is at least have 30 minutes, 40 minutes out of your day where you're just talking, just simply
Yeah.
sitting down with the toddler and talking. And this should be one of the relation building moments that we have at home. So
I completely agree.
yeah. So, coming to intelligence and emotional intelligence, you have been in the field of special education for a while now, more than a decade now. So, how do you get children with different needs? Talking about the pattern recognition problem that Linsha just now pointed out, that could be one of the educational learning, special learning needs that could come. And how do you cater to those complex needs? And for children with special needs, how do we introduce these complex science topics? Because
Um,
we understand that some students are very fast and they might pick maths or science very quickly, but there are some students who are not, and it's
absolutely.
okay, they might be good in language or science. So how do we make them interested in science a little bit?
So, Jogita, I personally feel that, when it comes to special needs, it's of course a very, very vast area. And just to speak about it in 5 minutes is like doing disservice to my field. But just for the audience who's looking, and for you all to understand how do we exactly help with science in science topics. It's like, first of all, if it comes to students in KG, we usually we focus on their strengths and their strong points. For example, if a child has a visual strength, so we usually use flashcards, or we use videos, or we use sight. If it's, for example, if you're talking for a KG student, if you're talking about vehicles or transport, we would actually take them out and show them a car and show them a difference between a bus and a car. If it comes to a higher grader, maybe a fourth or fifth grader, and we are talking about, for example, the water cycle. Now, for a child who's partially deaf, he's hard of hearing, he won't be able to understand if the teacher's talking in proper science, big answers, which CBSE usually offers. So it's not possible. So we might use maybe diagrams, or again a visual, or we'll show them. We make projects, we do projects with them, and we make them understand the what, like in simple language, in simple English. Water comes from the sky. There's a cloud. It falls down, goes into the water, evaporates. So we use a lot of hands-on experiments, a lot of hands-on working with them for them to get a tactile experience of it. So they can understand, they feel it when they do it, they understand better. Because just talking them doesn't help. Doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's about it. Even like cases like dyslexia, if there are children, so dyslexia is a condition where a child may know an answer. Again, I'll take the example of water cycle. If you ask the child orally, he will answer 7 sentences, perfect, in order. Everything is fine. You think that he understands, but again, our curriculum requires exams. We have to write papers. When they come to writing, they will know 2 sentences.
Yeah.
And then their thought process is shut. So how to help these kids? So we train them on giving them prompt points, how to get your answer in order. Max to max, if the case is really severe, maybe in 10th in the 10th board exams, CBSE has come up with recommendations and accommodations that they can have a scribe, or they can have an hour extra for them to think of their answers, and so we have certain accommodations in place for them, for these kids. So our field is growing, and we still have a long way to go in our field.
Yeah, it's excellent that at least there is a identification that these students need extra time, and this could really help them in having a more a fulfilled life where they are able to participate in society just like any other kid would.
Absolutely.
And it's important. And like you said, providing a more tactile environment, that is the core of science learning, or any learning, if you ask me. Other than languages, even languages, if you see, you learn languages the best if you go to that particular country or that community of people and just
Correct.
learn with them. You don't need to go into the depths of grammar then to understand their language.
Correct.
And you are able to pick it up more easily because it's a more laid back environment and you are seeing the language in use as it is.
Yeah.
So similarly, the audience, you have to understand that the process of learning itself cannot be put in a box, and we need to take it out of the box. And for example, we talked about learning about the rainbow. We can ask the kids to look at the rainbow and see what are the colors. We can ask them to describe the colors. Tell me what are the colors. Then I can tell them, okay, those 7 colors are what makes up the color white. And when you're seeing the rainbow in the sky, it is actually the color white breaking up into 7 colors. And there are several ways that you can make a rainbow at home. You can show it on YouTube. So that is what parents could do, and a more present parenting is what we need. Okay, so
Definitely.
my question, the next question that I have for you, Jolene, is as a parent, if there are some concepts that are very difficult, okay, this is something that involves a lot of mathematics, a lot of engineering, or is just plain simple not ready for this question to be answered. So how can you simplify and answer it to them? What is the go-to answer that we can give where they need to know that, okay, you have to get to another level of understanding, you have to wait? How can you simply answer?
This is a very good question, because again, I've had many instances where I've had people telling me, "Oh, why are you talking about this? He can't even understand that. He's my, like, I'm talking about an example of my own child. So why are you teaching them? He's so small. What can he understand?" I would like to tell all parents and teachers out there, that there's nothing, like I said, there's no right or wrong age. The more you expose your child to the environment outside, you don't even have to sit with a book. You don't even have to just take the child outside. Just take the child out for a walk. That's more than enough. Like, you show them the environment, show them the trees, show them the sky, show them the sun, moon, anything. Like, there's so much to learn just when you go out for a walk. And I personally feel like I've encountered certain parents who've had daughters, and it's an example which I'm sharing. Like I've gone out with one of my friends. They had a daughter, and we passed by an excavator. There was a site under construction, and they passed an excavator. And I stopped to show my son the excavator, and they said, "Oh, my daughter will not be interested in this." So I just realized that it's the mentality of parents. Like it's not the fault of kids. The parents think, oh, it's a girl child, so why will she be interested in excavators and tractors and bulldozers? It's not their thing. My daughter will be interested in cooking and this and that. It's our mindset that we need to change. We need to expose our child to like for a boy child, get them a cooking set if they want, get them a doll if they want, explain to them biology of a girl and boy, tell them girls and boys are not the same. You don't have to use the exact terminology at this age because it's too young for that, but explain to them that girls and boys are different. There are so many things you can do, but don't think, oh, it's a boy, so my boy should not have dolls because it's a girl thing. That's the main thing which we have to stop. So according to me, there's no topic which is difficult. And nowadays there are so many, you said about the rainbow, there are so many ways. If you find a topic which you find difficult, go on YouTube and figure out how to find out how to talk to your child about it. It's so easy. You just need to have the time and the energy to research on how to do it. And then if you do it hands-on, perfect, bingo. Like that's the perfect way to do it for your child. But even if you don't do that, talk about it, show the video and explain. If your child has a confusion, oh mama, how is that happening? How did that happen? Show them a video and explain to them how that happens. So their curiosity is answered. That's the main thing.
Right. So Linsha, you have another question for Jolene?
Yeah. Okay, Jolene. So the next question for you is: so how do you encourage curiosity in toddlers and how do we ask them? Like,
how do we encourage curiosity?
Yeah.
I feel mainly just talking is the answer to your question. Just keep talking, keep blabbering as parents. Keep talking, give them information. No baby talk. Baby talk is, I have never indulged in baby talk. No giving cute names
that
and
is
this.
one question that I had for you. Yeah.
No cute names for things. Give them a proper name. They might pronounce it wrongly, but there will be a time when they will pronounce it correctly. So don't underestimate your child. They will pick it up. So they will learn, they will remember the name, and they will pick it up. And you will be surprised that your child has picked it up so fast. So talk to them, have a man-to-man talk. That's what I tell my my husband also. Have a man-to-man talk with your child. Talk like as though he's an adult. So
it is shown to help, Jolene, that we avoid baby talk, or we avoid if we avoid talking to children as if they are of a lower hierarchy. That is what we are doing, right? We're teaching them that you are from a lower level of understanding or a lower hierarchy. So does it really help if we treat them like equals and tell them things as they are?
Definitely. Like I said, see, as an adult, I'll give you an example, Jogita. For an adult, if you're talking to a 6th or 7th grader, if you're explaining the water cycle, or you're explaining now water cycle, I can tell a 7th grader directly, okay, this is what happens, this is the process, and blah blah blah. That's it. The 7th grader understands. Now, some people will think, oh my God, this child is only in KG. This child is only a small 3-year-old. What will he understand? No, you get down your topic, break it down into pieces. Now, for a toddler in your own house, you can show them the process of cleaning clothes, washing your clothes in the machine and drying them. So that's another process of, how you're getting them. It dries, you put them back into the washing machine when it's dirty, it gets wet again. Get your child to touch it, see it's wet, it's damp. You have to dry, it gets dried again. A simple way to explain, okay, what happens in the water cycle. They will connect to it. And they will pick up much faster than the other kids because you're showing them a hands-on activity.
Yeah, that's a great example that you gave. We get a lot of examples that go out and show it to them, but right at home, a wet cloth and a dry cloth, the difference that you see. I don't think even as an adult I have thought about it so much. Yeah. So what this does is basically build a connection from point A or concept A to concept B for a child.
Exactly.
Just like adults and how we learn, children are also learning by making these connections. Right.
Correct.
So, my last question to you is, what has been your experience? You yourself are a mom now. You have a toddler. We are seeing on Toddler Doodles how you are teaching David so many beautiful things, and he's so perceptive. So, what has been your experience, and how have you developed these tools, and what are the techniques you've used or you're working on?
Honestly, the techniques that I've used is just what I use at my work.
Yeah.
It's just a thing of breaking down. See, for a special needs child, we teach the same topic. We do not exclude any topic because we feel what a normal child needs to know, even a child with determination needs to know the exact same thing. We might differentiate it a little bit. We might break it down for the child, but we give him the same information. So
Hmm.
I do the exact same thing for my toddler. I have never been a mom who invests in a lot of toys and buys expensive toys. I've never been that kind of a mom. I buy what's needed. I invest a lot in puzzles and Jenga blocks and blocks and stuff like that. Of course, I have a lot of junk in my house. By junk, I mean I hoard a lot of bottles, milk bottles, and cardboard boxes, and I use that with David. That's what I use with David. I have a separate corner in my house which only has that for his pastime. So when he is bored, again I allow David to be bored, which is extremely important. I do not, if he's bored, he cries, I do not give him the phone, because I feel when the child is bored, they start using their brains on how to entertain themselves, which is extremely important.
Yeah.
And I give him bottles when I'm cooking in the kitchen. I give him bottles, do whatever you want. I give him water. I allow him to pour water from one into one bottle. That works on their finger grip, hand grip. It helps them understand the concept of heavy, light, big bottles, small bottles, so many things. The pressure of how much pressure to use on the bottle, so many things. So I invest. I keep a lot. I hold a lot of boxes and stuff like that. When I go for a walk, I do this thing like a nature walk with my son, where we don't take the cycle, we just go out. We call it the nature walk. So now he himself has got used to it. We'll go for a nature walk. So he goes out and we look at anything under the sun. Like I said, like just look at anything. If I see a building under construction and I see a crane, I stop and I tell him, David, look at that. See, it takes 5 minutes extra, but I give him that time to understand what's happening. He sees it, and then we come home. Maybe if he's not understood it, I show him a video about it, or I explain to him. We either draw it and I show him what was happening. So these simple things, even in the car, like when we go out for a drive, sometimes taking care of toddlers in the car is excruciating pain because they get hyper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my husband and I usually play a game called I Spy with My Little Eye. So
Mhm.
it's a very common game, but parents don't do that. So I spy with my little eye a tractor. I spy with my little eye a bus. I spy, if you want to make it a little more complicated, a vehicle that has four wheels, or vehicle that has two wheels. If my son is extremely cranky, then I make it a little more fun. So I tell him, oh, I spy a dragon who's trying to eat food from the ground. So he looks at an excavator who's trying, so you can build up your creativity, and that's how he builds up his imagination. So you don't have to be boring. Oh, chalo, look at the tractor, look at this, look at that. Imagine how your child's imagination is working. So he loves his car drives. So it's been good now. The YouTube videos have been going good. I've got a lot of love and appreciation. So it's just what I do on a normal basis.
So you're making these games for toddlers, right? Can you tell us about one of the games that you have made or describe it for us? How it works?
Honestly, it's just hands-on activities for kids to like, for example, when it comes to literature, like usually parents just, like in our time, for example, at least in my school, we used to just write C-A-T cat, D-A-T bat, just write words over words, just, and we were expected to memorize. But here, currently we follow phonics, which is extremely important for a child to start reading. So I make activities which are hands on, with glue and paper and sticking sticky notes and stuff like that. So a child is more interested in reading. My activities involve reasoning and critical thinking, and it's not only reading and sentences and this, because Education is a lot more than
More
just
than that.
eat. I saw a cat, the cat is on the mat, and this and that. It's a lot more than that. Your thinking is more important. Your creativity and imagination is way more important than just reading, especially in today's world where you need to be a little more aware.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming to critical thinking, this is something that a lot of parents miss out on why it is important to develop critical thinking. So can you shed a little light on what are the aspects that we miss out as far as critical thinking goes?
Critical thinking, I personally believe, is important because, especially nowadays, where see, nowadays you find parents wanting their child. Now there's a new thing of getting or putting your child into robotics and putting your child into. There are different things coming up. There's coding and robotics, and I have no idea what all is happening, especially after lockdown has happened. Parents have got extremely crazy. Oh my God, let me put my child in this, they'll be busy for 1 hour. Let me put my child in this, they'll be busy for another 1 hour. So just put them in something
Following
or
a
the other.
trend. Parents themselves are following a trend.
Yes, yes, and it's so not needed, and they're such small kids. Like they're not supposed to be doing coding and this at such a young age. It's not needed. I mean, you have much more important things. If like I personally feel it's important. Critical thinking. Take them to a supermarket. Suppose you don't have your money. What would you use? You forgot your money. What would you use? Oh, you have a card. Suppose I forget my card. What do I do? What I should not get panicked in that situation. Sometimes as adults we don't know. Oh my God, I'm stranded. I don't know what to do. Learn to use your brain. There's always a solution. You don't have. Your world doesn't come to a stop. Children nowadays are breaking down because they are not trained how to handle tough situations. They are given a solution immediately. So critical thinking helps in that. Okay, if you're stuck in this situation, what would you do? If you're on an island, you don't have any thing to do, what will you do? What will you eat? Okay, I'll figure out. I'll go and eat fruits from a tree. It's a child answer, but that's a way to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how critical thinking helps.
Yeah. So, audience, the forum is open for anybody to ask questions. Jolene, you're getting a lot of positive comments from your supporters. Yeah, you can see them over here.
Amazing insight.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just highlight those. And if there are any questions the audience want to ask, please feel free to ask. So one other thing that I found very interesting is, the subject of gender is very interesting to me, and diversity is very interesting to me. You spoke a little bit about stereotypes, like toys that are meant for girls and toys that are meant for boys. I understand the importance. I want you to highlight why it is important that we don't get carried away with these stereotypes.
It's important because the only answer is you find girls as engineers today. Girls are nothing short. You can have them at any kind of a job role. There's nothing. There's nothing that holds them back. And as parents, we might unintentionally. I'm not saying that we do it on purpose, but unintentionally. Oh, it's a girl. Let's buy a pink dress. Why? Who's asked you to buy a pink dress? Who's put that into your head? Like you don't have to buy a pink.
Or you will be given a kitchen set, and your brother will get a great lorry or a truck.
Rowdy boy toy. Why? Who has made this? It's not needed at all. Like it's all in your head. Your upbringing helps things, makes you think, oh, the girl has to be given this and the boy has to be given this. There's nothing like that.
Yeah. So parents, I think when we propagate such stereotypes, we ourselves are putting limits on the progress of our child, and we should not say that you should not be playing with dolls if you're a boy, and that teaches a boy that you it's bad to be sensitive, or it's bad to not feel things or feel soft. And girls, on the other hand, when you're giving them just the kitchen set, you're telling them that your place is in the kitchen, and you learn it right now, because in the future the only option you have is be a mother. So yeah, our toys speak a lot, our clothes speak a lot, the colors that we give to our children speak a lot. So Nikhilesh has a question for you. How should a parent deal in a mature way if their grandparents or other religious indoctrination. At the same time, how to ensure kids reply rationally but not rudely. So I think this is in terms of traditions, very hard customs that grandparents may be making us do, and also as kids to make sure that we don't end up looking rude. So how can we make sure of that?
I personally feel that we shouldn't allow the kids to come in between a grandparent and a parent, because kids at this age cannot decide for themselves. See, like I said, I said in my session, that kids will do what a parent asks them to do. They, of course, they are creative, but they will usually follow what a mother or a parent or a father will guide them through. Grandparents, on the other hand, will understand their child better. That's the mom or the dad. So if a grandparent has, okay, we did something like this, or I don't really understand what Nikhilesh is trying to, what example is he trying to this, but to an extent, if there's some if a parent believes that, okay, this has to be done like that, I think it's a very casual, comfortable way. Speak it out to the grandparent and tell them that, that things are not like how it used to be 20-25 years back. Now education is different, rules in the country are different, safety for girls in a place like India is different. So it's very, very different. Things are not like how it used to be during your time. It's that easier matter to discuss.
So drawing a boundary as parents and deciding what is okay and what is not is the most important thing.
It's very important. Yeah.
Thing, I think it's okay. You can always talk to your children later. But if it's something that is toxic and you feel that your parents are crossing a line, of course you should take them aside and talk to them.
Definitely intervene, because it affects your parenting, and there cannot be two kinds of parenting on the same child. That's not a healthy thing for the child. So either it's your way or the grandparents' way. So if you have to come up to a solution and then enforce it on your child.
Yeah, I think to some extent we also need to deal with a lot of ideology clashes with our parents beforehand, before we start venturing into the journey of parenting. But of course, that is not something that everybody can afford to do. But we should have a real conversation, a man to man, like you said, or a woman to woman with your fathers, that this is the kind of parenting that I want to do, and I will not tolerate if a certain line is crossed. Because of course we are getting into parenting to give our values to our children and make them independent in their own way. So another question that we have now is Bhavisha Dedia. Can you also explain how important it is for a child to be learning with their grandparents? That's a positive point. Can you answer this question for us?
I think it's extremely important. I think it's extremely loving when grandparents are available, and especially for someone like me. I'm in the UAE, like I said, since the past 5 years. We have our parents and my husband's parents come down for some time. And it's amazing to see my son bond with his grandparents. The way he connects with, it's on a different level. You cannot even imagine that with yourself. The love, the empathy they have for their this, and sometimes they'll correct. Oh, don't shout at him. He's my grandchild. These things you have to just ignore, because they're grandparents. They have their own pace. They have their own this, and that's how they. And learning, of course, I don't know to what extent, because see, there are many times where some parents who are working, I've seen it, that's why I'm saying it out of experience, that some parents who are working might expect grandparents to take care of the child's learning. In many cases, it might not be the best scenario, because see, as grandparents at that age, again, their learning at that time was different. Our learning at this time is very, very different. Their patience to teach a small child is not as good as how a parent would be. Sometimes as young parents, even we lose our patience. So it's not a very great match. But of course, teaching them values, teaching them how to be a kind child, how to talk with respect, all those are perfect. I mean, that's the best thing grandparents can do.
The factor of being present when there are four or eight people in the child's life who are adults, who they can
Yes.
turn to, it's a very positive thing. And if you
Absolutely.
have a good relationship with our parents, it also teaches the children that in the future, this is the kind of relationship we expect to have with
Absolutely.
them. And
Absolutely.
all in all, this ties up together, of course, because learning can only happen in a safe environment. If I'm afraid, I'm not going to be learning. I'm just going to be trying to solve the problems that are around me. Okay, everybody's
Correct.
fighting. There's no love. Where there is no love, there can be no
They
learning that
cannot.
can happen.
Your brain
So,
shuts down.
yeah,
If there's fear, even as adults, if there's fear, your brain shuts down. You don't want
yeah,
to do anything. You don't want to listen. Your senses shut down. It's the same
yeah.
thing with a child.
Yeah. So if you are on good terms with your parents, they should definitely be more involved, and not just science learning in any kind of learning.
Any kind of
That
love.
kind of positivity is always helpful. So yeah, that's all the questions that we have. There's a lot of appreciation.
I
from
have
the
one more question.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah. There's a appreciation from the audience again for Jolene and your methods. Yeah, Linsha, please ask your question.
Okay, now today's parents, they are a little bit worried about the digital world, like how to keep our toddlers away from mobile phones. Can you speak more about this? Like how do we tackle this?
Mobile phones, I've had many parents coming and asking me this question. I tell them I completely put the blame on them because it is not the child's fault, it is the parents' fault. When a child is small and the child is asks questions, I go back when they ask questions and it's the time for them to share a bonding with the parent. The parent says, "No, I'm busy, or I'm tired, or I'm this, or I'm that," and they give the phone to the child. Okay, the child will keep quiet for 10 minutes. Slowly, slowly, you don't realize you're making it a habit for the child. You're giving into, okay, I'm bored, let me watch the phone. I'm cranky, let me watch the phone. I'm crying. Slowly, slowly, the child builds a habit. They understand, okay, if my mother, if I act a little cranky, I'll get the phone. They understand. Children are extremely smart. Toddlers are extremely smart, and they know how to get their parents around their fingers if you allow them to. So it is our responsibility not to allow them. Even it's not that I do not. It's not that I do not allow my son to hold the phone or something. There's nothing like that. If I allow him to use the phone, it's only for educational videos, or there are tons of educational apps like Khan Academy Kids. There's Blippy. I don't know whether you all have heard of it. When you all are parents, you all will hear of it. So they have scientific things. So if we come across something new and I want to explain it to David, we go on that and we look it up. The main important thing for toddlers is you stop and you ask them what is happening in the video. Don't allow them to get 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just screen time. At some point, they just shut off and they're just looking at the video.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So after every 15, 20, 30 seconds, stop the video. Okay, what's happening in the video? What did you see? What did you learn? So even if you're giving the child the phone for whatever reason, make it a productive experience. Don't just
intent.
an absolute nil experience where the child is learning and he's not doing anything. He's spoiling his eyesight, and it's of no use. So stop, be there, ask him what's happening in the video, what's this, So, but as far as possible, try and avoid screen time. It's not a healthy experience. It doesn't challenge the child's brain. It's of no use. It's just to keep the parents. Give them a little more free time.
Recommend over the day how much a child should have as far as screen time goes?
Research, if you go to, according to research, parents might backlash at me, but research says that you're not even supposed to show your phone to a child below 18 months. Not even supposed to show the phone to a child below 18 months. After post 18, you can have 30 minutes a week. 30 minutes a week. So it is that
less. That
less. I know it is not happening in around this, but
Definitely.
Yeah, but that would mean, a lot of parents I know, they have given an iPad or a phone, a complete different phone for their children.
I know.
Yeah, so that's something
that's definitely not a healthy thing to do.
So in that way, these hands-on games, Jenga, or building blocks, these are the kind of games that we need to go back to and teach our kids to play with them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Puzzles.
Or
I barely
even
see any
reading for that
puzzles
matter.
anymore. We never see any puzzles anymore with children. You know, there are no
Yeah.
children playing puzzles. So yeah,
No,
this is
that's a very good.
important part of
It's not this even reading. Even reading, you don't have to always play games. Don't like I said, it's not important that the child has to be engaged all the time. It's not a very healthy thing for the child, because when you as you grow up as an adult, there will be times where you're bored. Your friends will be busy, or you're on a holiday and you will have nothing to do, and then you start feeling depressed. Oh my God, my parents always gave me something to entertain myself.
something. Yeah.
So you should not allow that to happen to your child. So allow your child to be bored. Allow your child to use his brain to think, how do I entertain myself now? Let me go pick up a book. Let me start reading. Let me make up my own stories. Let me talk to myself. There are some kids who talk to themselves, which is very good. Some parents think that they're crazy, but that's not.
No,
It's
but
a way
that's
of
important. Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
way of
Yeah,
imagination. It's a
imaginary friends, especially parents, should not be scared if their babies or toddlers have imaginary friends. You should engage with those friends. Yeah, use them. That
yeah,
okay, if Bobo is the guy who's the imaginary friend, okay, Bobo will also be angry if you don't eat this. Yeah, I've seen a lot of parents use it, and it's actually effective because we are giving them a positive feeling that yes, we believe you, and in the future, it also builds for an environment where they trust you
exactly.
when we
Exactly.
accept it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Nikhilesh has one more question. Is it important also for parents to take a digital break? Yeah. So Jolie, would you like to answer this?
Of course, I mean, that goes without saying. It's extremely difficult, especially, especially during lockdown. The great
Yeah.
coronavirus has made parents even more addicted to their phones,
Phones.
because when you're now working from home, many of them have nothing much to do apart from work. So they are on their phone, they are on social media, and this and that. But uh,
Yeah.
see, if you don't have a child who's looking up to you, it's different. You can be on your phone, but if you're expecting that your child is not supposed to be on the phone and you be on the phone, that's not cool. You cannot do that. Oh, chalo, I am mama, so I can watch the phone. I have all the privileges. You are a child, you don't get it. That's not allowed. You have, like I said, be man to man, be woman to
You
woman,
have to
and have
teach
this
discipline.
for
Yeah.
the child.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
have
a discipline that is to be shown, and there is no hierarchy at home. Just because
exactly,
I'm an adult, I can do X, Y, Z, and you cannot. That then
absolutely
teaches them, makes them think that when I grow up, I can do whatever the hell I want, and
correct.
that's not okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and no more comments or questions. Linsha, do you have anything more to add or ask? Okay, yeah, this has been a very informative session. I have really enjoyed it, and I cannot impose on the importance of parents and parenthood, which is more present. Parents who are talking to their child without looking at the phone. You should not be like, I have a phone in front of me and I'll be talking to the child. That's not
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
It makes your children think that they are secondary in your life, and these are the formative years. At least in the formative years, you cannot be doing all that. And as they grow up,
Absolutely.
maybe they will understand. But even with your friends, this sets an attitude if you're always on the phone. So we should be more
Aware
responsible
of your
citizens.
surroundings.
Yeah, and be more aware as parents, and go out for a nature walk with your children, and that's the way that your children can learn science. So before we close, we have every day for the last 7 or 8 days we have been doing this quiz session on our channel, and I just need on our Instagram handle, and I just need to announce the winners for today's quiz. Ismail Khatib, Ashish Gupta, Dakhim Dalwai, Deepak Gupta, Mr. Ashish Yadav, uh, Sidra Khair, Steffi Simanti, Renu Moria, Shraddha Gadkari, Vaishali Yadav, Sukanya Mopanar, and Prince, and also Sinu. So, thank you all of you for participating. You are the winners for the trivia today. And the correct answer was 118. The atomic number of Oganesson is 118. So please keep engaging audience on our platforms, and go and check out Jolene's amazing content on Toddler Doodles on YouTube. You can also message her specific questions only. Please, no stalkers. If you have any specific questions, please ask Jolene on her email. That's jolenebraganza12@gmail.com. So, Jolene, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Linsha.
Thank you, audience. Signing off now.